This is my mama's holler. There used to be a house up there. A tree fell on it. So they finally got rid of it. It was a big eyesore. And that up there is where the Cottle boy lived. I used to go up there and feed his dog for him all the time. It ended up in a big math house. Ooh, this road is scary. Wasn't as bad when I had my little purple car come around it just fine. My truck's a little bit bigger. I need to get rid of that big thorn. Scratchy vehicle. That's my old house there. I was stupid enough to leave it and marry that idiot. But, you know, you live and you learn. You live and you learn. This is my mama's house. And these are all her plants. And here she comes. Up the steps. Hi, Lucky. Hi, baby. I did. There's old Zelma.
Where you been so long?
Are you picking your banjo?
Not right now. I'm going to tonight.
Good. Hi. Hi, girl. Hi, guys. Oh, my goodness. My gosh. Hi, sister. Hi, sister. Oh my goodness, I see you, I see you. Yes, I see you. Yes. Oh. He's peeing. Yeah. How old are you, Mom?
I'm 78.
You're 78.
But there's all kinds of education. It don't all have to be done in school.
Right.
You know, we have, and today, of course, it's all different because, you know, we got the internet and you can just learn anything you want. And I was a little kid, I read the books my uncle would bring. I come from an educated family. My grandpa was a school board member, and he was instrumental in getting the schools all throughout Greenup County. And he donated land and they built a school on it and stuff like that, you know. So he educated his kids. And when you're educated, that means if you've read lots of books and you've looked at lots of pictures and you've dreamed of going places and, you know, about kings and queens and how they did back then and the Romans and all that kind of thing. It opens up your mind that there were whole civilizations existing for lots and lots of time, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't all good civilizations. And then you had Christianity came on the scene, and that changed things a lot, the progress of cultures. So, it opens up your mind, but when you just are born into one thing and I'm not talking about going places, I'm talking about you're born into one thing and you don't ever read
Or experience anything different.
That's right, then that's where you're at. You
That's all
don't
you
have
know.
options because you don't see options. You don't have it's not in your pattern of thought to look for options or alternate ways of doing things. You know, it's like there's a set way to do it and that's the way you do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not like that. You know, you can look at logic. If you use drugs, who are they barking at?
I don't know.
Hope it's not my cat. If you use drugs, you're probably going to get addicted. You know what I'm saying?
And if your parents use them around you when you're a kid.
You might use them and you might not. You might be totally disgusted by it.
True.
That's the way I was about alcohol. My dad was a drinker. He was a drinking man. And I'm sure if he had it to do over, he wouldn't be a drinking man.
Yeah.
But you know, that stuff gets a hold of you. I think he was an okie-dokie feller. Had good morals, I suppose. I don't know. But I'm sure he did a lot of things drunk that he wouldn't have done sober, if that's, you know.
Yeah.
But at any rate, he was not a molester or an abuser or anything like that. He was a bit prejudiced. You know, he was racially prejudiced. That's the only thing I ever heard him say negative was a few racial things. And that wasn't very many.
Yeah.
It was just when they were starting to integrate the schools, I heard him say a thing or two, and it just shocked me to death. People would say such a thing. I'd never been exposed to it, you know, and there wasn't any black people around. And I remember the first black person I saw, and I was absolutely shocked. I couldn't believe it. I don't know if I knew they were black people or not, but we had those Bibles, you know, that had those see-through pages.
Mm-hmm.
So I always liked looking at those, and they had pictures. And sometimes they had little scenes.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I read every book that I could get my hands on, even if it was age-appropriate or not. Some of them I didn't understand a word it was saying, but I read it until I did. And my uncle, that was a college professor, he was married to one of my daddy's sisters. He brought us all these books. And then my aunt, she was married to a preacher too after her first husband died. She brought us all these clothes, and I love to dress up in all these old, they were just, you know, old clothes that come from the church or something, because they were...
Your house had dirt floor, didn't it?
Well, the first one I had when I was a little kid, it didn't have a dirt floor. It had a big hole in the kitchen.
Oh.
And so we never went in there. We just stayed in the room where the fireplace was. And then in the summer, we just stayed outside. But then, after my grandpa died, we moved down in his house, and he had floors. So, I guess to keep me out of the kitchen, they didn't want me going in there, you know. They don't, you know, there's so many things could happen to you. They said rats jumped in and out of that hole. And they kept a table setting over it. But I guess when we ate, we'd just get whatever we was going to eat and go back in and sit down and eat it in the
other room.
Yeah, and we all slept in the same room. And it was a sight now, I'll just tell you.
And there was 5 of you, wasn't there?
There were 5 kids, and one of them was a boy. And I remember one time they had this little old room off to the side. I guess my mom got to thinking that she needed to let that boy sleep in a different room than all them girls. So they made a shuck mattress out of corn shucks. Well, Lord have mercy, you couldn't sleep on that. You'd have had to been awful tired. So I don't know how long he slept in there, but not too long. And I remember the bed bugs, I think they were.
Oh gosh.
They'd spray with DDT to try to get rid of them. And I remember the big hubbub about that, because they think it was bad for you, you know. And even at that time, my family was pretty smart, you know, so they knew scientific kinds of things.
You had a lot of teachers in your family.
Yeah, that was my grandpa's influence. He had those girls. He gave those girls. He had 10 kids, I think, and he gave all of them the opportunities to go to school. Even my dad went to school. He went to electronic school, engineering, or something to do electricity. Of course, he never did it. He couldn't keep a job. It wasn't that he wasn't smart enough. It was that drinking.
Yeah.
It's that old drinking.
How long did you teach at the college?
Well, I guess about 30-some years. Boy, I thought I was hot stuff when I got that job. I guess I was, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man, that was a good gig to get.
And I was really interested in it, and I enjoyed it, and I come down here, and I didn't even notice what was going on around me in terms of the poverty, because I had the people I worked with were the people that I knew, and then my students, a lot of the students during that time period, I don't know how they are now, were absolutely wonderful, because it was an opportunity for them to do something in their life and provide for a family that they thought they might have, or to get a good husband, or, you know, or whatever it was, that they wanted the opportunities, and so they were super nice to you.
Yeah, a lot of students really like you. I've never heard a student say anything bad.
Well, I'm sure there's some that I wasn't fair to. I'm sure I wasn't fair to most of them, truthfully, in some way or another, at some time or another.
Oh.
But I sure did want them to succeed. And if I was mean to them, it was because I wanted them to succeed. See, I got them 2 things hanging over there for the birds, and I just now noticed that they're starting to eat on them.
Yeah.
I had a hard time getting the birds to eat. I got bird seed, and I would like to have a bird feeder, but with dogs and cats, you don't know if you're
luring them in.
be murdered or what. And I wouldn't want to do that.
No.
Yeah, my plants are doing real good. I've got them out here in the center and off of my brick wall. I like my brick wall, and I decided I want to show them.
Oh, yeah, I love it. It's nice.
So I'm going to have it showing more for long. This old chair is about to fall down, but I sort of like it.
Well, you know, I think
poverty's a state of mind, too. You can get desensitized to the things that are available. And if your life is comfortable, it's hard to look at why you should do it any different. And that leads to poverty. But also, drugs is an issue. And I don't know, if people get hooked on them, they don't use their right mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? People that are on drugs, that are high, they don't use good judgment. And people that are drunk don't use good judgment. And so they do stuff that they should not be doing. And things happen. Girls can get pregnant, and that's a whole different scenario. Because what are you going to do about that? There you are with a child. And so we look for things that society shows us.
Well, the norm here for a long time was the coal mines. And you had men, that was just the way of things. When you got old enough, you went into the coal mines. And so
it was a way to make a living. It was the standard of living.
Right, but that's what everybody did, unless, you were one of the cases that didn't. But for the majority, that's what they looked forward to, was when they got out of school, they went into the mines because they could make real good money. And people got married, and they had kids, and they supported them on their coal mine.
Well, and two, it was not a profession. Coal mining, I don't think, was a profession. In my opinion, coal mining was not a profession that supported education.
No.
They would not, because they were making their way in the world by their brawn, more or less. Or they might be real clever and have some sort of mechanical skills that were just sort of innate to them. So as a consequence, the area is education, and they needed community centers and swimming pools and all of those kinds of things that people had other places. They didn't support the founding of those. You got to work to make your civilization solid. Just like we have pretty good fire departments here.
I heard somebody say several times, I've heard people say that the people who sit on the city councils and that are in these powerful positions in our towns, they wouldn't let a whole lot of stuff come in here, because if they let things come in, it would relinquish the amount of power and control that they had over the way that things were.
Well, I'm sure that there's a lot of truth to that. If you change the culture of the community, if you educate it, you give it opportunities when it's a little kid to...
More competition, business-wise.
Yeah, there's more people going to come in, and they might not have the same values. They might have values more like me, for instance. I don't have the same values as most of the people around me. I think education is big. I think that's a biggie, and I think proper nutrition. And there's no reason we shouldn't be feeding everybody in eastern Kentucky. There should be places for anybody to go eat anytime they want. And I say that because of the poverty level. Maybe in the cities, only in the levels where they don't have good food. There's nothing wrong with running a bus.
How have you found being a single working woman in southeastern Kentucky? Who like you've not been a wallflower.
Well, no, but I wasn't interested in romance. I just knew it would sidetrack me.
How do you feel people received you?
Oh, I think they received me fine. I think people pretty much accept me here. I think they think I'm a little bit odd. Which I suppose I am. And the people I had in school knew that I really wanted to help them. Most of the time I was that way. But I think I've been received well. But I don't think it has anything to do with me. It has to do with the position that I held in the community colleges. If I hadn't had that job, it would have been a totally different, scenario for me. And, I went off every summer and went to those camps for the music and all that kind of stuff. So, I got lots of friends in that old-time music scene. So I really didn't rely on this area to give me my socialization, I guess. I had my students, and they were old enough to where they were good company. And I had the people I worked with, and they were upstanding people. And so then I had my friends from off, and I had friends at Apple Shop, and I had friends out at Cowan. So I did very well.
You felt accepted.
I felt accepted, yeah. But I didn't feel that my heart connections were not necessarily here, except for my little friend Bobby up the street that died. And her and I got real fond of her during COVID, because me and her go out and ride around, go get us some food, and we spent a lot of time together. We were our only companions.
How old was she when she passed away?
She was about 88 or 89.
88 or 89. I thought she was in her early 90s, but she wasn't.
No, she hadn't made it to 90 yet. I was hoping. She was in poor health, and she didn't want to go to the doctor. That's another thing around here, is people don't want to go to the doctor. They won't pursue it to the end. So they thought I had lung problems, and I do have lung problems, I reckon. So I pursued it to the end, and I know now that I have some issues with my lungs that I need to keep track of. But nothing is changing, and I'm going to be just fine. And he gave me this thing that I'm supposed to exercise my lungs. And
Yeah.
And you hold it up there, and you know it really works.
Well, good.
And so I've discovered, I was short-winded bad, but I've discovered in walking up the steps, if I inhale real big and walk, and if I need to pause, take a pause instead of going, you don't get any place doing that. You got to get it down in your lungs. So I'm working on that too. It becomes a habit then, because you know that quick shallow breathing is a habit.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to do deep breathing. So it took me 2.5 years to find that out and to get this little gizmo that might have cost $10. And then I didn't have all the stuff that they were trying to tell me about my lungs, and I didn't need to take sildenafil. It's nothing but Viagra. Well, it's a vasodilator.
They gave you Viagra.
Yes. For a vasodilator, so your lungs. And it just was not. You know, most people wouldn't have pushed it for 2.5 years. Well, I'm not taking any of that. And I have to.
Oh, that's so funny.
Well, that's what it was. That was why it was discovered, was for
Lung breathing.
For your lungs, for vasodilation.
And that other thing that they prescribe it for is a side effect that they found.
That's the side effect. They discovered that. And
It meant
$15. Now everybody wants it, but it don't do any good for women.
Yeah.
Except vasodilate their
Lungs.
whatever, their body, their vascular system.
Ah.